Oh, you want me to say something now? Yeah, okay. Um, so, all right, action. Yeah, it's just like in the film business. Yeah, so what we were going to talk about today is, well, what have we decided to talk about today? Collector cars.
I've actually been interested in asking you some questions about the collector car market and what that actually means. What is a collector car? I know it's a very vague question or a really dumb question maybe, but some people might consider a collector car one thing and people consider it another.
And that is an absolute truism. They do. I mean, there's people who, guys who come into me and go, oh yeah, Grand National. They think it's a great collector car, and I think,
So it's just a preference-based, interest-based kind of
It is,
preference?
but I mean, there are bona fide collector cars. There's no doubt about it. But I mean, any car that's part of a collection becomes a collector car. And anything that's literally surplus to your needs, as your daily driver, is basically a collector car. Or classics and collector cars are very different because you can't say that a brand new Ferrari is a classic, but it is certainly a collector car.
Right.
But it has changed. I mean, there's different kinds of collector cars. A true collector's car basically becomes part of a collection. And there's some massive collections, and I've been to some where some guys have like 1,000 cars, and they're all restored. They're not 1,000 cars in a junkyard. It's 1,000 cars all being warehoused and everything, and all restored. And they generally have a theme. I mean, there's guys who collect just British cars. There's one chap I knew in Pennsylvania had 300 Rolls Royce, all restored and all Concours prepared cars. And we'll get into Concours at some later point. But and he also had another 300 American classic cars, and he had them in 2 different facilities. And I've come across guys who've got like 3 Dodge Valiants, and that's their collection, and that's their collector cars.
Right.
I mean, there's Peter Mullins, who's passed away now, had a collection of Avion Vasson Bugattis, world famous. Probably meant less to him than some guy who's got like 4 or 5, old cars from the 50s or 60s that may not even be well restored, but he's got a complete and utter passion for. So it's a lot about passion. A lot of collector cars are in a wave that travels 30 to 40 years behind us. And I'll explain that by saying, when you're 18 or 19 years old, you may fall in love with a car, but you don't have any ability to buy it at that time.
Right.
But in your 40s or 50s, you now have the ability to buy that car you always wanted when you were a kid, and people do. And that becomes the largest part of the collector car market. When I first started doing this, it was 1920s and 30s cars. The 1920s cars were flagging a bit, and they weren't as desirable as the 30s cars. There weren't as many people interested in them. But the guys who were buying were guys who, when they grew up, knew those cars.
Right.
I grew up at a time when the muscle cars were out and about. I can remember, a '69 Mustang Mach 1 in that beautiful blue, grabber blue that they had at a traffic light on Yonge Street on a rainy evening. And it was just, almost dark, and the lights were glowing off this thing, and it just left a permanent, I can still see it in my mind, that car. Now, I don't want one of those now, but 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I would have killed to have had one of those. And I've had the great fortune to restore several that were identical to that '69 grabber blue Mustangs,
Right.
Mach 1s. So I get it when somebody comes in and they've got a passion for a certain car. And if it's just one in your driveway, and it's a collector car, it doesn't need to be part of 200 or 300 cars. I mean, people generally equate, Jay Leno with an amazing collection. I've been through Jay's place, and it is absolutely amazing. What I liked the most about it is because he's incredibly passionate about cars, but he's passionate about all cars. So he has a very eclectic collection. So he's got things from the brass era, he's got steam-powered cars, he's got electric cars, he's got Lamborghinis, and it makes for a very interesting collection. And then I've been into, I was in one guy's collection, it was nothing but Porsches. you know. And I found it and they were all silver. He liked silver Porsches. That's all he collected.
But all different models.
Oh, no, all 356 and 911s.
So I guess that's my next question is that, you could have a collection of Mustangs, but they're not all the same kind of Mustang.
Yeah.
You can have a whole collection of Bugattis. They're not all the same, but are some people more inclined to have all 12 of their Bugattis are the exact same, just different year or color or basic trim things? I'm not too sure.
The only time I've seen that was in a collection of Superbirds, where the guy had, I can't remember whether it was 9 or 11 Superbirds, and they were all different. All the different colors. They're all virtually exactly the same car, but they just had different colors on them and different provenance. And that was what he wanted. I remember he wanted me to sell them as a complete collection. I was like, yeah. And he wanted all the money for them. I said, well, but he wouldn't break up the collection to sell it. So it meant a lot to him, but I tried to tell him that I would take them on consignment, but I can't sell them as a complete collection, because the only way you're going to do that is to a dealer who's going to break them up, and the dealer is not going to want to pay full retail. So if you want to sell them off at full retail, you're going to have to break up collection, and he just wouldn't. So I don't know whether he ever got around to selling his collection or not, So, and that really pointed out to me, some people's collections are really important to them, to the point where it becomes something that they don't want to have anymore, but they really don't want to see it broken up either. And I mean, that really doesn't work unless you're gifting it to a museum or something.
Right.
Yeah,
I guess that makes sense. And also, I guess you could have a collector car, but not a collection of cars.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, if you've got a 56 Rambler, it's still a collector car in the terms. It's a classic, but I mean, you don't need to have a collector car in a collection for it to be that. It just turns out that is the subject of collectors.
Right. Yes.
So it's an odd term, because you think a collector car is going to be part of a collection, and it should be by rights. But I mean, now it's just become like, you go to a cruise night, they're all collector cars, But what they aren't is all classic cars, and that's where people don't get those distinctions, right?
Yeah, it's a very, very subjective or very, very broad umbrella that is at the same time subjective.
Car is
but
easily
classic
defined.
And collector is not.
Yeah.
The difference between those two things is not. But the term collector car.
Collector car is anything that's collectible.
Yeah.
It could be like a 2-year-old Honda if you've got 30 of them. I drive by a place every now and then. He's got a front yard filled with minis. Modern minis, not the old ones. Modern minis, and you can see a lot of them are broken down and everything, and there's all kinds of different colors in that. To him, those are an amazing collector car. I go by and go, ooh, it's a BMW scrapyard.
Well, someone could have a collection of just old pickup trucks, everything from like a Chevy C10 to like a GMC, or to an F-150, an F-250, something like that. And that could be his collection. So they could
there was a guy who had a collection of nothing but 48 through 52 Ford pickup trucks.
That's all he
had.
He
had like 40 of them.
They were all the same.
They were basically, but yeah, they were all Ford pickup trucks. They were all, either F1s or
okay, gotcha.
But there was only like a 5-year period. They were all the same body style, just different grills, and I mean, a lot of them are wrecks. But boy, he would actually sell you parts off of some of them, but he would only sell you a part once. Well, you couldn't go again. You couldn't go,
okay.
Oh, I bought a windshield wiper arm off you last week. I need a such and such this week. And nope. He was a very eccentric individual,
That's actually so funny.
Yeah.
It's like such a tease.
Yeah.
Doesn't give them both wiper arms, just one.
Yeah. That's right, yeah. But, you go to, various competitions. I mean, I've had the great fortune of seeing so many cars over the years, and so many very significant cars. And I've gotten to know a lot of big-time collectors. One of the things that I have over the years realized is quite often the guys with huge money quite often are very passionate about their collections. They're collecting more for the sake of ego and social prominence than they are because of the love of the car. Now, I would say Jay Leno is really an exception to that because he's so passionate about cars, and he knows so much. He really is an expert. I mean, he spent the fact that he was an entertainer is second in his mind, I'm sure, to the fact that he's a car collector. You know?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I've met other car collectors where it was just a convenient way to reach into a social network that they didn't have any other access to. Pebble Beach is a great example of that. We go to the Concours d'Elegance in Monterey, which is not just the Concours on the Sunday, it's also a whole week of activities. And it brings in collectors from all over the world. And, it's really funny. The people with the lesser amounts of money who struggled to get a car on the lawn are the ones who are incredibly passionate. And quite often I've spoken to owners who have pretty amazing collections and they really don't know very much about their cars. They barely know how to drive them. And that's more the rule than the exception. You generally see a lot of these owners being driven by the guy who restored the car. I've restored cars for gentlemen who've never driven them and haven't even sat in them,
Oh, wow.
So, but they still want that collection because it places them somewhere they want to be socially.
That's their channel or avenue of doing so.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
interesting.
you turn up at Pebble Beach and you are a renowned collector of, say, Bugattis, for instance, and I mean, I've met a few of those. It immediately establishes you in rarefied air socially. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, if you're just a guy who's a stockbroker but very successful, your job doesn't maybe get you to where you want to be. It might let you mix with their stockbrokers, but it doesn't get you into a social circle that you really want to achieve. Whereas having a collection of very important cars that you can take somewhere like Pebble Beach or Amelia or Villa d'Este in Italy, that establishes you in a certain social circle. And whilst that is the highest point of collecting, that reproduces itself over and over and over again, right down to the very bottom levels of collecting, where people collect not just because they like the car, but because that car gets them into an environment of like-minded people or a social circle that they like. And I mean, you can see that from the local cruise night at the Burger King, where it's less about the car and more about the people who own the cars.
Right.
The car is the ticket to get in.
Well, it's even like fashion in a lot of ways, right? As well, very expensive clothing brands like Gucci, Versace, and stuff like that. Like you can find a way to acquire these brands essentially, and if you go to the places where other people are wearing those kinds of clothes, of those higher end ticket prices, and you'll find yourself in that circle of people who you want to be more like-minded with. You want them to be like-minded with you as well. It definitely is a social atmosphere.
Yeah, and it can be very snobby.
Yeah,
There's no
absolutely.
doubt about it. Just because people got a lot of money doesn't mean they're actually nice to be around.
That's true.
But yeah, it does establish you. Anything. I like and collect watches. I don't really associate with other watch people, but I understand when I see them and talk to them as enthusiasts. I'm not enthusiastic enough to go off to a Rolex meeting.
Yeah, definitely not.
But it's the same pattern as with collector cars. And what is a good collector car? Well, ideally a collector car is one that you put money into that actually maybe appreciates a little bit while you own it or doesn't depreciate. And I don't think there's any really real reason. We're used to going, you buy a car off a dealership, and as soon as you roll across the curb, it's now worth 20 grand less than you paid for it. And from there, it just is a sucking hole.
Right.
There's no sense, you can try to invest in a new car, in a way that you may get your money back, but it's very, very hard to do. Unless you're buying a Ferrari or something, and you're just not going to go and buy a Dodge Ram and get all your money back and then some as a collector piece, even if you hang on to it for 30 years.
Right.
But when you buy an old collector car, they do quite often appreciate at least at the speed of inflation. So I mean, a car that you could have bought for 10 grand 20 years ago is probably 20 grand now, you know.
But not necessarily worth restoring completely if it is a classic car. I want to make that clear.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, that's it. You know, we've had
Unless
that conversation.
You really, really want to.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
it won't appreciate, and there won't be
Yeah.
an investment or some sort of return there.
Yeah.
But that's where it gets kind of funny, because then people think a collector car, well, this is something people want. This is something that is a rarity of some sort. I
not
should
necessarily.
restore this, and then I'm going to make a lot of money off it.
Yeah, no.
And then that's not necessarily the case.
That's not necessarily. It is never the case.
So, well, that's what people don't really understand,
That's right.
And we were kind of talking about that last time. So, in terms of the actual like collector car market, what do you think of that in terms of classic collector cars and the market for them today?
Well, you know, there's something, you know, never buy a painting with the hope that it will increase in value. Buy it because you like looking at it. And I mean, cars are the same thing. If you buy a car hoping that it will appreciate in value and you're going to get your money back and then make a bunch of money on top of it, you're probably going to be disappointed. It does happen, and it happens often enough to let us all think that it's going to happen to us. But it doesn't happen very often. Generally, by the time you've noticed something has gotten stupidly priced, it's already gotten away from you. You know, it's happened to me. Alfa Romeo Montreal. Always thought, you know what? I really like to buy an Alfa Romeo Montreal. Really, I know they're crap, but they're an exquisite-looking piece of crap, right? And I kept on not buying one. And I mean, the last time I went, and I was down in Monterey. I went into this guy's little dealership. He had a exquisite Alfa Romeo Montreal that he says just finished being restored. The guy wants out of it, and it's 25 grand. Well, I mean, it had to be at least $150,000 to put it into that condition or more. I went, wow, what a great deal. So I went, I thought about it. I said, I'll talk in the morning. And I went, I went back to the hotel, and I thought, oh man, if I buy that, now I got to arrange to get it on a truck and ship it up. And he said he wants it out of here in 5 days. And it was just going to be more aggravation than I cared to. I thought, I'll buy one next year. Well, of course, that year, Bonhams sold one for $85,000. And immediately, every nice Montreal in the world became worth $85,000. And then they actually went right up. There's guys selling them for $175,000. And now I see them nice one, decent ones for still, I've fallen back to 85,000. But by the time I was actually prepared to buy one, they'd already gone further than I was prepared to pay. Same thing happened Ferrari Dino. Janice wanted one. We kept on putting it off. It would have been a bit of a stretch. They were like $40,000, right, for a decent one. And it was going to be too much of a stretch for us at the time. But we kept on thinking, oh, maybe we should. Well, maybe we should have, because now they're $250,000.
Yeah.
And in 2016, we had a 1963 Corvette, and I love 63s. They're, of all the Corvettes, and of all American cars, actually, that is my absolute most favorite of all American cars. And having driven this one we had, I really fell in love. And there was a lot to love, because the family had bought it, driven it for one season and put it away, but looked after it, and it's put away. It was absolutely original. There's, as far as collector cars are concerned, that's the best collector car there is. When you've got a car that looks like it's been restored, but it is the car that came off the end of the assembly line. And this car was exactly that. And we were asking $85,000 for it. And, guys go, wow, it doesn't have electric windows. Well, oh, really? But you open the hood, and those hose clamps were put on by the GM assembly line worker. You know what I mean? Like, that's how original this car was. We didn't buy it, but we should have. And the only reason we didn't was because I just bought an Alfa Romeo 4C, and I went, 2 cars at once. Like, I just bought a toy and, to buy this. And I mean, Janice she said, well, if we can buy it, but I thought, to be fair, I don't need to stress her, And so I didn't buy it. And of course, now that car is worth $225,000 or more, because it's absolutely scrupulously original. And I mean, now they're just teases, because we got one in the shop. It's a silver 63, and it's gorgeous. And I mean,
yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I say there's not a lot of cars we're doing these days that I would like to own, because I'm still passionate about 1920s and 30s cars. I still look at them and they do something for me. Whereas 60s and 70s and 80 cars really don't, you know, so it is. But when I walk into the shop and I see that 63, I would like to own that, you know. And is that a collector car? Well, boy, it sure is. I mean, you know, and I've seen collections of Corvettes where guys have all of the generations, you know, from the C1 through to the C6 or C7. And then there's all the variations in the theme. You know, there's Grand Sports and Z06s and special engine packages and elites. And I mean, some of them are, some of the racing equipped 66s and 67s hit $200,000 20 years ago, you know, but those were cars that were radio delete, heater delete. They were just, came out of the factory just to go straight to the race course. And those now are worth a fortune, you know. So, yeah, there's collector cars out there that you're going to make money on, but you have to be really savvy. And not only really savvy, but boy, oh boy, you got to be lucky. Because, I mean, I've been playing around with that, and I have done well. And I'm maybe scoring a little better than 50%. But you remember the losses more than the wins, you know.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I've taken some
As you
real,
should, really.
I've taken some real kickings, you know. And I mean, I just went out, I bought, you know, a Corvette Z06, and when we bought it, it was the next great thing. They're an amazing car. That C8 Z06 is an absolutely amazing car. And then right after we spoke for it, what did they do? They brought out the ZR1. So I went, So now nobody is as passionate. Nobody wants the Z06 because they all want the ZR1.
No one wants the Z06 because you have the Z06.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And of course, the poor bastard who went out and spent $250,000 on a ZR1, General Motors did it then. They brought ZR1X. So, you know, I had a friend who went out and bought one of each year of Prowler, and then she proceeded to buy each color, thinking that she was going to have a dramatically viable collection because they didn't make very many and they didn't make them for many years. So she had, I don't know, probably 20 Prowlers, and they never went anywhere. I mean, right now, I think a Prowler sells for about the same as it sold for 10 years ago and less than it sold for new.
Can you think of any type of car that no one would really want just one of? Like, so if someone's going to get one, they would want a collection of them. Are there any cars like that, like that you can think of?
To me, it was Land Rovers.
That's the first thing that kind of came to my head. I don't know why.
Well, yeah, but with me, the Land Rover, because I bought one and I need to buy more to keep that one running. So I ended up with a collection of 11 of them.
But only one that was complete.
I only wanted one, yeah.
Well, yes, you only wanted one, but you needed 10.
But I needed, 10,
Yes.
yeah.
But I mean, vice versa. I don't know why, but for some reason, yeah, like I do like Land Rovers myself, but I would be happy with just one.
Yeah,
but I know I would need at least 5. However, is there any type of car that you know of that anyone who would really want them, it would be because of a collection, not just because they just really want one?
I think racing cars.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, racing cars, because, I mean, you don't want just one.
That's true.
Because, you know, unless it's a car that you're actually driving on the track, and you're one racing car leads to another one, and, you know, like, well, I'd like to have that car because it ran in the same series as this racing car. And there's some magnificent collections of racing cars. And that's a whole different world from the ordinary classic car world, because really, you got a whole bunch of cars you really can't use unless you drag them out to the track, and then there is, you know, a liability, because let's face it, on the track, there's no insurance. So you prang your collector car, it's all coming out of your own pocket.
Yeah.
It doesn't slow guys down. You go to Laguna Seca, to the vintage races there, and I mean, there's guys out there just hammering $3 million, $4 million Ferraris. I mean, they're not kidding around.
Me too, same.
What's that?
Yeah, me too.
That's not like you with your Bronco. Yeah.
Brutal. Brutal.
You know, but they bought those cars, and I mean, let's face it, they're moneyed people who can afford that passion. And I mean, and there's a lot of the sort of that Walter Mitty thing going on there too, where they're buying race cars from the period when they were younger and would like to have been a racing driver themselves, right? So, you know, you see these guys just hammering the tracks with, you know, 50s and 60s race cars, you know, and I mean, some pretty sophisticated stuff. I think guys in Chaparrals and, you know, Lotuses and McLarens and that kind of thing. And I mean, that's heavy money. Mercedes, you know, I've seen guys racing gull-wing Mercedes, you know, that are stripped down to the way they were when they were actually being raced, you know. But I mean, that's, you know, that's a world where if the guy smashes up his $500,000 car, he's pissed, but it's not going to affect him financially.
No.
You know.
He will financially recover from that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, to him, that's like, you know, the average guy building a Honda stock car and going to the stock car races every Saturday night.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
he smashes up his Honda. Well, big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, collector cars are different, have different values to different people. You know, I mean, if you're a kid whose formative years and teenage years were spent in the 60s, you're going to like muscle cars and that kind of thing. You know, we have people, as you know, coming in the door now and going on about 80s cars. I mean, oh my God, but you know, and I'm sorry, I know you guys out there love 80s cars, but when somebody says to me, oh yeah, I mean, I want an 84 Monte Carlo, my brain dries up, you know?
Yeah.
And it's because to me, they're just junk. They don't go far enough back. Because honest to God, as great a following as 50s cars have, and as magnificent as they are, a lot of them were junk. You know, they weren't that well made. Some were, you know. Some of the higher end cars, like just the fit and finish in like 50s Cadillacs is stunning, you know. But, you know, in a lower end Chevy or, you know, just in a Ford Crestline or something, not so much. You know, like the door gaps were bad and the hoods didn't close well, and, you know. And they were only intended, I mean, those cars were only intended to do 50 or 60,000 miles before they were completely worn out. People don't know or remember that these days. I mean, these days we drive our cars 500,000 miles. I can remember General Motors, when they brought out the 283, was the most dependable motor any manufacturer had ever made. It was so dependable that the dealers were complaining because people were getting 100,000 miles out of a car with a 283 in it, and they weren't selling enough cars and they weren't doing enough service work. So GM went, well, we got to rethink this. And I think it was the 305 or whatever. They changed the cams and the stroke in it a little bit, made a complete crap engine. It was so bad that they had fulfilled the requirement. That was a very different world to one we're in now, right?
Yeah, it is actually.
But it was also a world where it was key to, by the time your car was a year old, it was markedly a year old. I mean, your Bronco is what, 2 years old now? 3?
It'll be 3, I guess, now.
3.
Yeah.
Can you tell the difference between it and a brand new one? Not really.
No, not too much.
Just by the stickers on the fender, if you know the stickers that they're putting out this month. In those days, you know, your 64 Galaxy was completely different from a 65 and didn't share any characteristics with a 66, which meant that your brand new car this year pigeonholed you as, oh, that's just an old car now, next year, the next year. And in those days, when I was a kid, I can remember people buying their new car and the whole neighborhood would turn out to go look at it. There's people 2 doors down from us bought a 64 Galaxy, brand new, it was red. It was a beautiful car. And everybody turned out to see this car. You know, it was the same thing as people go to the dealerships to see the unveiling. Right. It was big news. But a year later,
Yeah.
they're you know, and also the car companies very cleverly persuaded people that as you went through life, they gave you the means to show how successful in life you were. So you bought a bottom-of-the-line Chevy, and when you got a little better established, you bought a Pontiac, and then after the Pontiac, you bought a Buick or an Olds, and then you bought a Series 62 Cadillac if you could afford it, and then eventually you bought a Cadillac Eldorado. You had arrived. You were incredibly successful. You'd paid like $10,000 for a Cadillac, you know? Yeah, because that original Chevy probably cost you $1,600 brand new.
Yeah, probably.
You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, they can't do that anymore because people have smart. But the only people who get away with that these days are cell phone manufacturers.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
All these commercials about new set of 6 new commercials for this.
It's got a new
iPhone.
camera. Ooh.
And it's only that good for 8 months until your phone company is reminding you that you're due in 4 months for the next one that you still have to pay for 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, people fell into that trap with cars because these days cars are a longer term commodity. I mean, let's face it. I mean, I think even when you look at purchasing a car in the 50s and your disposable income then, I think cars are even more expensive now as compared to your disposable income than they were then.
Yeah, no, it's not relative.
You know, but I think what fills that niche with people is certainly computers and cell phones and things like that, where you're convinced that you must have the next one. I mean,
we've accepted that things are just expensive.
I think my cell phone's like 4 years old now, and people are, oh my God, that thing's ancient. How do you use it? Same way you use yours. Well, I know I don't. I can make phone calls on it, and I know how to get onto Instagram and say insulting things to people.
The other week, Dave, you texted me asking me for my number because you said you didn't have it.
I did, yeah. I didn't have your number.
But you texted me from your phone. That can be a whole other episode. But that is something I won't forget. But you clearly did, so it's okay. I'll remind you.
Yeah, but I know how to strip down and rebuild a carburetor, so there's a life skill.
I think I can get by for at least a little while longer.
No, you don't, because I bought you a Spitfire.
It's not mine.
No, but I bought it for you so you could fix the carburetor and drive it for the summer while you were selling it.
With all the time I have, because I'm sitting here doing this.
It only took you 5 hours to get in here.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, anyway, have I answered your? Do you have any other questions on collector cars?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I heard that too. Someone's honking at us. I think someone's honking at us to get out. I think that's really something I did want to discuss with you for a little while, and because I wasn't sure if I just wasn't understanding collector car, definitely different than classic car, but not every classic car might always be a collector car, and sometimes that's the case. I wasn't sure, but also about the interest and what would make someone want a certain collection versus a different one. And I guess we can talk about that when we talk about car shows and things like that as well, because there are people who bring their cars to shows, and they have to. It's like, how do they pick which one to bring?
Well, that's where I mean, a car show. That's a chicken and the egg thing, right? You want to go to a car show. You got to buy a car to get there, but what kind of car show? Do you want to go to an all Dodge show? Do you want to go to a Chevy show? Corvettes maybe only? Is that your interest, or do you just want to go to the local
But you've been to them
cruise
all.
night? I have been to them all. I mean, we started out at cruise nights, and I attended Pebble Beach for 22 seasons. Been invited to Villa d'Este and Lake Como. I've been to every car show I want to go to, other than there's a couple in England that I haven't made yet that I may or may not. End up getting to. And I've seen every level, everything from car shows where the cars are actually having to operate to car shows where they just don't move. Some of my favorites, honest to God, my favorite car shows are rat rod shows, because rat rods are a great car that will be collectible. Right now, they're the property of the people who are building them, which is great, because they are like the original hot rods.
Okay.
People are making them for different reasons, but sometimes they're just making them because they want a hot rod and they can't afford to spend $150,000 on a kit and a blueprinted engine and this, that, and the other thing. So what do? They do what the original hot rodders did in the 40s and 50s. They go get some wrecks out of a wrecking yard or wherever they find it, some farmer's field, and they cobble together, a really cool car, and they use their own design ideas and their own inspirations and their own talents, or lack of talent in some cases, to create the car that they really, really want. And I mean, that amuses me and interests me in many ways, far more than lines of $1 million cars at Pebble Beach.
Okay. Well, maybe we could talk about that for next week, so that we we definitely have a lot of
Well,
car
we do
shows
need
to
to talk about, hot rodding, and I have done, on the YouTube feeds and everything, I have done the history of hot rods and that kind of thing. And hot rodding is still near and dear to my heart. And people say, well, if you're going to have a car collection, well, I've had a car collection for years, but not because it's ended up, and these days I'm trying to get the numbers down. But if I would, the only collections that I see that I really are envious of are, and this goes back to my youth again, are collections of the California customs. Like there's a Ford dealer, I think it's Galpin Ford or something, and he's got Ed Ross stuff and Barris's stuff and Dean Jeffrey stuff and and all these important like cars that were in movies and that back in the period. And I'd like to have that collection. I'd love to have that collection of hot rods. Bruce Meyer, who collects hot rods as well as really high-end Bugattis. I don't know whether Bruce has got Bugattis or anything. He's got an amazing collection of hot rods, very significant cars. He's got some of the Beach Boys owned, and he's got some of the the SoCal cars that were raced at Bonneville in the 50s and in the 40s. And I look at that collection and go, yeah, that's cool.
So that would be the collection that you would probably pick for yourself?
If I was collecting right now, if I started collecting right now, yeah, the cars that would be original 40s and 50s hot rods, absolutely no doubt about it. I mean, every time we bid on it, and we own a couple now.
Okay, we do have to end this podcast at some point, Dave.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about hot rods later then. So we conversed about a lot of different things. We were talking about collector car market. Supposedly that was the subject of this, but we do tend to wander off in different directions. But like that raises the next one. Let's talk about hot rods next time. So I just got told that we're not talking about hot rods in the next show. We're talking about car shows. Okay. I've been straightened out.
The week after that, we will do that.
Okay. So I got something to look forward to now. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.